Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.
Southeast Radio.
Well, the environment has never been more prominent in consumers' minds. So what do businesses need to do to satisfy these needs? And why does going green make good business sense? Laura Burke is the Director General of the Environmental Protection Agency, and she joins us now to tell us more. I'd like to start the interview by getting an insight into your own background.
Delighted to be with you, Karl. I'm actually from Dublin, though have been living in Wexford for almost 20 years at this stage, but probably still a blow in, Karl, at this stage. And my background is I'm a chemical engineer, went to UCD many years ago and did chemical engineering, and after that worked in the private sector for many, many years, and then joined the EPA in Wexford here in 2004.
And talk to me about the organisation, the Environmental Protection Agency, and your purpose and goals.
The EPA was set up in 1992, and our headquarters has always been in Wexford. So we were set up as a decentralised organisation, kind of, I suppose, ahead of our time in many ways. So we have locations right across Ireland, everywhere from Castlebar and Monaghan and Kilkenny to Cork and Dublin as well. And our purpose, I suppose, is really to protect, improve and restore Ireland's environment through regulation, scientific knowledge and working with others. So there are our three core functions. And people will probably know us for our regulatory function. We regulate activities that have the potential to cause significant environmental pollution. So that can be things like landfills or cement plants or pharmaceutical plants. But we also have a big role in monitoring the quality of the environment. And during the COVID times, I suppose we were out there still monitoring away our water quality and our air quality, for example. And then the last thing I'd say in that is a lot of the work we do is working with others. So that can be working with the local authority system, for example, or we often work with enterprise stakeholders, or with NGOs as well. So we pretty much work with most people in Ireland in some shape or form.
As a society, we are more in tune than ever before with environmental issues. But in reality, how much progress has actually been made in recent years?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting question, Karl. And what we're seeing is that, yes, people are much more attuned to the quality of their local environment. And I go back to COVID again and say, I think during that time, people were much more conscious of, when we were stuck to 2 kilometres and 5 kilometres, etc., of, was there litter in the local environment? Was there kind of, air pollution, smog, smells, all of these sorts of things. So I think the awareness has increased. I would also say that in things like air quality, I think things like the ban on smoky fuels will really help and improve the air quality that we're all breathing in. But as I said, it is disappointing to see the declines, for example, in water quality. But overall, I think there's a great incentive, there's a great desire to further improve the quality of the environment, because it's in all our interests. We all want to be able to go to the forest or to go for a swim in the many beaches around Wexford or go for a walk and not encounter, for example, basic things like litter. And there has been a drive over the years to reduce litter, but it's in all of our responsibility. And I think on occasion, and there can be peaks and troughs in this, we've seen great improvements, but it's always at a risk of disimproving. And that's just people's individual behaviour and actually having a respect for the environment and for their neighbours. And certainly, and I live and work in Wexford, and it frustrates me deeply when I'm going for a walk and you see litter just thrown by people. And that's one of the basic ways of protecting our environment is actually, as they say, leave no trace. And when we're out and about, that we pick up our own litter and we take care of our own impact on the environment.
And Laura, are you in favour of a carrot or a stick approach to actually influencing and changing people's behaviour in this regard?
I think in everything, there's three key aspects that I would refer to. First of all, it's information and guidance. We all need, and that's whether you're an individual, whether you're a business, whatever, we all need information and guidance to be told what's the issue and what can we do about it. And if you think back to the time of the changes in the bin system, we used to all just have one bin, and then we came to have multiple bins in our homes, for recycling, for composting, for the mixed waste. And we were given that information and guidance on what to do and how to do the right thing. So that's absolutely critical. The next bit is, supports, incentives and supports, particularly in the business area and, for example, in the agricultural area that I was talking about. How do you incentivize and support people to make the right choices? And then last but not least is the stick, and is for the small kind of number of people or businesses that don't comply, that don't do the right thing, there needs to be heavy enforcement. So it's not one or the other, Karl. I'd say it's a combination of all three.
In your belief, are businesses playing their part? Are they doing enough in this respect?
There's a number of businesses that are doing really, really good work, and we're seeing new and innovative businesses as well coming along and seeing these changes as a real opportunity. And, examples I would give would be things like in companies making all of these keep cups so that we're no longer disposing of the single-use cup. There's a great opportunity there that people have taken on board. And I know some cafes, etc., are doing deposit return schemes. So, really interesting new and innovative businesses. But we do have other businesses, and the EPA regulates around 800 companies. So everybody from, as I said, kind of some of the larger, the cement plants, landfills, pharmaceutical plants, agri-sector as well. And of those 800, we have a small proportion that really aren't performing well at all. And they take up an awful lot of our attention, and we have to bring significant enforcement efforts onto them. So I'd say there's a number of companies that are doing really well. They're seeing it as an opportunity. They're seeing that people are very interested in environmental issues. They realise that they have to be able to stand over their environmental credentials. And then there's a small number that unfortunately can bring the image of a whole sector or a whole area down. So it's in all of our interest to call out those companies as well that aren't performing.
You're also of the belief, I know, Laura, that being environmentally conscious as a business makes good business sense.
Absolutely. And this is something that we've been talking about for a long time in the EPA. And we set up the first National Waste Prevention Programme back in 2004. So almost 20 years ago, but probably before it was fashionable to do so. But what we've seen through both recession and good times is it makes basic, business sense. If you're in a business, you don't want to be wasting money. And when you're wasting money by disposing of material or heating buildings that shouldn't be heated, or doing any of these things, it can be a sheer waste of money. So when we look at businesses and we talk to them about, for example, your waste, your actual bin that you're throwing out, how do you reduce the amount of material going out in that? Because that's money literally going down the drain. With regard to heating and having appropriate heating in buildings, to make sure, and even now more so than ever, be conscious you're not heating buildings that don't need to be heated, or, as I've seen in many occasions, heating a building and a window being open at the same time. That's, again, you're just throwing money away. And on the water area, again, not wasting water. And we've done significant work, including with businesses around Wexford, to look and see, well, where are the opportunities to reduce those costs? And it's a win-win for the business, and it's also a win-win for the environment. And also now, because so many companies and organisations are really trading on the clean green image, it is a unique selling opportunity, but you have to be able to stand over it. And I think we've a much more aware consumer than ever before that if people are promoting themselves to be clean and green, that they have to be able to demonstrate it. So overall, look, it makes economic as well as environmental sense.
That's a very good point you're making in relation to trading with that green and clean image, because greenwashing is a major problem out there, isn't it?
And I think it's probably of its time, and I can see things getting much, much tighter into the future. I think companies, not only in Ireland, I think all across Europe and wider, got onto the bandwagon a little bit and thought this is something, we'll say this, but not really being able to stand over their credentials. And, we've seen those companies being called out. And that's, once you lose your reputation, it's a very difficult thing to get it back. So more and more from at both the European level, and I see it coming into Ireland as well, is if you're saying things, you're going to have to be able to demonstrate it. So greenwashing, I would really hope, will be something that will be in decline and really called out by consumers into the future.
And of course, transport is a key component of any environmental strategy. So what should Ireland be doing in this regard?
In transport, there's a lot of ambition there. We are quite a dispersed population in Ireland when you look at us versus other countries. I think, there was recently an OECD report with regard to Ireland and looking in particular, I suppose, at our cities and public transport and a real focus on public transport in cities. I think then the rural dimension does need to be looked at slightly differently and really looking at what's the best way to move people around in a rural community. You can't have the same level of public transport. So whatever we do, we need to be incentivising low carbon transport. So we may still have, more cars in a rural community than you would have right in the centre of a city, but they need to be low emission vehicles.
And finally, Laura, what is your outlook for progressive environmental action in Ireland over the next 5 years?
Oh, I'm an optimist by nature, Karl. I think we're in a situation now that I certainly haven't seen in the last almost 20 years in the EPA, where it really is a tipping point. I think people are really on board. They see the benefit to themselves of having a good, clean, quality of environment, to their health and well-being. So not just the environment for the sake of it and its intrinsic value in its own right, but really for people's health and well-being.
Well, if you've just tuned in, that was Laura Burke, the Director General with the EPA, and I'd like to thank Laura for sharing her green insights with us this morning.
Southeast Radio's Business Matters with Karl Fitzpatrick.